Hi, it's Andy with Ninox Corporation. In this class, we're going to continue our discussion of inventory and talk about sub-assemblies. Now, in our last class, we talked about raw materials. Today, we're going to take multiple raw materials and combine them in varying quantities to create a new product called a sub-assembly. I'm going to go ahead into my inventory module in the function menu. And when looking at all my inventory, I see my raw materials here and my sub-assemblies here. Now I've created some raw materials, a desktop computer, a wireless router, printer, and what we want to do is offer a product that is a bundle, a one-stop turnkey solution for a two-user in-office computer network. So we're going to call this the Apple IT Desktop Bundle. Bundle will consist of 2 Apple desktop computers, a router, 2 printers, and 1 hour of labor necessary to pick and package and put together all of these components. As long as you have it documented as a raw material, you can include it in a subassembly, which means some of the components of a raw material may not be physical components. It might be something like labor. So you'll see here that I've included at the bottom 1 hour of labor, specifically assembly and warehouse labor, at the rate of $125 per hour. Keep in mind that our physical inventory is expensed when we sell it as cost of goods sold. Our intangible or labor inventory is expensed as payroll when we either pay our employees or as accounts payable when we pay subcontractors or outside vendors who do work for us. Like raw materials, every subassembly can be part of a group. You can have as many user-defined inventory groups as you want, but each subassembly can only be a member of one group. We have our categories and classifications. And the same way we did in raw materials, here we can keep track of tolerable variance. If we order this many and receive a different amount, is that amount acceptable as a complete delivery? Finally, as we add items to our subassembly, the total extended cost of those items will be added up here. So if we have 2 computers at $478 each, that's our cost, then the total cost of computers in this subassembly is 2 times the unit cost. Tracking the unit costs of 2 printers, the router, 2 computers, and 1 hour of labor, we have a total of 6 individual items in this subassembly, and those 6 items cost our company $1,373. We have currently 4 of those items in inventory, so at a total cost of $1,373, we have almost $5,500 in capitalized value in our balance sheet in the form of this inventoried subassembly. And speaking of the balance sheets and financial statements, we can track the inventory account, the expense account, and the cost of goods sold account for this particular subassembly here. These are defaults. They're not mandatory. Defaults can be set up when you configure your system, and of course they can be overridden at runtime if necessary. And finally, we have the default location option. If we're running a multi-location inventory, then we are able to define where this particular subassembly, this bundle or kit, would normally be stored. Of course, you can store subassemblies in any one of your inventory locations, but by having a default, you don't necessarily need to define the location if everything is going according to plan. When you build this particular kit, it'll automatically go into its default location. So here you see that I have manually configured a subassembly, which is to say I have defined what it actually consists of. It consists of these parts and labors here. This is merely the definition of the subassembly. When it comes time to actually create the subassemblies, we're going to do that in our build function. Here I am in the inventory module, and I can go to my ledger, specifically a build transaction. Now the first thing I want to indicate is, what am I building? I'm going to build a subassembly. And the subassembly is that desktop computer bundle. Now, I've only got 4 in stock, and I always like to have a minimum of 10 in stock. So I'm going to build 6 more. I'm going to put them in Warehouse C, Aisle A, Rack A1. If I had defined a default inventory location for this subassembly, it would have defaulted here automatically. And I have the option to enter some comments, so I'll make a note that I want to replenish the inventory to a minimum quantity of 10 by building 6 more. Now watch what happens when I post the transaction. First, it's going to ask me if I want to pull the components from the default locations. In building 6 of these subassemblies, I need to go out and find 12 computers in my warehouse, 12 printers, and 6 routers. And the question that the system is now asking is, should those be pulled from the standard location, or are they somewhere else? I'll say yes, go ahead and pull from standard location. And here we see that we now have a build transaction, and here we see all of the items that we need out of inventory, all of the raw material items necessary to construct 6 of these subassemblies. Since each subassembly requires 2 computers, I'll need 12 of those. 6 routers, 12 printers, and 6 hours of warehouse labor. The total inventoriable cost of these 6 new subassemblies is almost $8,300. We're not creating $8,300 in new inventory. We're taking away $8,300 of raw material and repackaging it as $8,300 of a subassembly. We're still capitalizing the same amount of inventory. We have merely changed the form of the inventory from 36 individual items into 6 individual subassemblies. In our next class, we're going to talk about finished goods and the products that we sell. I'll see you there.